When she showed up at my door that Tuesday morning, dressed in designer clothes I knew my husband had bought her, demanding money like I owed her something, I felt something inside me snap. But I didn't let it show. Instead, I smiled, invited her in, and pressed record on my phone. She had no idea what was coming. Before I tell you what she demanded, please tap like. It helps me stay calm. If you've ever seen someone's true colors in one moment, please subscribe. Your support feels like the only honesty around me. And comment your name and where you're watching from. I want to remember those who stand with me. Let me back up, because you need to understand how I got to that moment. My name is Margaret, and at 62 years old, I thought I knew everything about my life. I'd been married to Richard for 38 years. 38 years of building a life together, raising 3 children, supporting his career while I put my own dreams on hold. I was a good wife. No, I was a great wife. I managed our home, I hosted his business dinners, I smiled and laughed at his colleagues' boring stories, I ironed his shirts every Sunday evening, made sure his favorite meals were waiting when he came home late from work. Richard was a financial consultant, successful, charming, the kind of man who could sell anything to anyone. He made good money. We lived in a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet suburb, and from the outside, everything looked perfect. Our children were grown and gone, living their own lives in different cities. Jessica was 35, a doctor in Seattle. Michael was 33, working in tech in Austin, and our youngest, David, was 30, teaching high school in Portland. They were all doing well, all making us proud. I thought Richard and I were entering our golden years together. We'd talk about traveling once he retired, maybe getting a small place by the beach, spending more time with our future grandchildren. I had plans, dreams for us. After all those years of putting everyone else first, I thought it was finally going to be our time. The first sign came about 2 years ago, though I didn't recognize it then. Richard started working later, going into the office on Saturdays, taking business trips that seemed to multiply. He'd come home smelling like expensive perfume, but he always had an explanation. A client meeting, a work dinner, a colleague who wore too much fragrance. I believed him because I wanted to, because the alternative was too painful to consider. He became distant, distracted. He'd be on his phone constantly, smiling at messages, stepping out of the room to take calls. When I asked who it was, he'd say it was work, always work. Our conversations became shorter, more superficial. We'd sit at dinner in silence, him scrolling through his phone while I tried to make conversation about my day, about the garden, about anything. Our intimate life disappeared, almost completely. He'd say he was tired, stressed about a big client, worried about the market. He'd turn away from me in bed, and I'd lie there in the dark, wondering what I'd done wrong, wondering if this was just what happened after almost 40 years of marriage, wondering if I'd become invisible. I started noticing money disappearing, small amounts at first, then larger ones. When I'd ask Richard about the withdrawals from our joint account, he'd get defensive. Business expenses that hadn't been reimbursed yet, he'd say, gifts for clients, emergency car repairs. There was always a reason, always an explanation that made me feel foolish for asking. Then there were the credit card bills, charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to, purchases from jewelry stores, clothing boutiques. When I confronted him about a $1,500 charge from Tiffany's, he got angry with me. For the first time in our marriage, he accused me of not trusting him, of being paranoid and controlling. He said the necklace was for his sister's birthday, which I knew was a lie, because his sister's birthday was in March, and this was September. But I apologized. Can you believe that? I apologized for questioning him. I told him I was sorry, that I was just confused, that of course I trusted him. And he accepted my apology with a cold kiss on my forehead before going upstairs to his home office, locking the door behind him. My friend Linda noticed the change in me. We'd been friends for 20 years, ever since our kids were in elementary school together. She'd come over for coffee, and I'd try to act normal, try to pretend everything was fine. But one day, I broke down and told her everything: the distance, the money, the late nights, the phone calls. She took my hand and said, "Margaret, honey, you need to face the possibility that Richard might be having an affair." I pulled my hand away, offended, defensive. Not my Richard, not after 38 years. He wouldn't do that to me. Linda didn't push, but I could see the pity in her eyes, and I hated it. I started paying more attention. I became someone I didn't recognize, checking his phone when he was in the shower, looking through his wallet, searching his car. I felt like a crazy person, but I couldn't stop. And that's when I found it. A receipt, tucked in his glove compartment from a hotel. The Riverside Inn, a boutique hotel downtown. Room charge for one night, $380, plus room service for two. My hand shook as I held that receipt. The date was from 2 weeks ago, a Thursday night when he told me he was staying late at the office to finish a presentation. I sat in his car in our garage, staring at that piece of paper, and something died inside me. The marriage I thought I had, the man I thought I knew, it was all a lie. But I still didn't confront him. I was scared of what it would mean, scared of being alone, scared of admitting I'd been a fool. So I put the receipt back and went inside and made dinner like nothing had happened. When Richard came home that night, I served him his favorite pot roast, and we ate in silence while he scrolled through his phone, probably texting her. The breaking point came 6 months ago. Richard had been especially distant, barely speaking to me for weeks. Then one Saturday morning, he sat me down at the kitchen table. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. He was always so confident, so self-assured. "Margaret," he said, "we need to talk about our future." My heart started pounding. This was it. He was going to tell me about her, whoever she was. He was going to ask for a divorce. But that's not what happened. Instead, he told me he wanted to open a second office, expand his business. It was a great opportunity, he said, but it would require a significant investment. He wanted to use our savings, the money we'd been putting away for retirement. $50,000. I should have said no. I should have questioned why he needed so much, why he couldn't get a business loan. But I was so relieved that he wasn't asking for a divorce that I agreed. I signed the papers. I authorized the withdrawal from our retirement account. I gave him $50,000, and he kissed my cheek and told me I was the best wife a man could ask for. That money never went to any second office. I know that now. It went to her. Things got worse after that. Richard became even more absent, even more cold. He'd leave for work early and come home after I'd gone to bed. We'd go days without having a real conversation. The house felt empty, even when he was in it. I started sleeping in the guest room because I couldn't bear lying next to a stranger anymore. I lost weight. I stopped caring about how I looked. I'd catch my reflection in the mirror and barely recognize myself. My hair had more gray in it. There were lines around my eyes I didn't remember seeing before. I looked old and tired and sad. My children noticed when they video called. "Mom, are you okay?" Jessica would ask. "You look exhausted." I'd lie and say I was fine, just been doing some heavy gardening, not sleeping well, allergies, anything but the truth. Linda kept pushing me to hire a private investigator, to get proof, to protect myself, but I couldn't do it. Some part of me still hoped I was wrong, that there was another explanation, that my marriage wasn't over. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday, 3 weeks ago. I was home alone, having my morning coffee, still in my bathrobe. It was about 10 in the morning. Richard had left for work hours ago. I was standing in the kitchen, looking out at the garden I'd spent years cultivating, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I considered not answering, but then it rang again, more insistent this time. So I walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. There was a woman standing there, young, probably in her early 30s. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Long, dark hair, perfect makeup, wearing a designer dress and heels. She looked impatient, checking her phone, tapping her foot. I opened the door, and she looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Are you Margaret?" she asked, not bothering with a greeting or introduction. Her voice was sharp, entitled. "Yes," I said, confused. "Can I help you?" She laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. "This is rich. Richard didn't tell you were so frumpy. I mean, I can see why he wanted an upgrade, but still." The words hit me like a physical blow. I knew immediately who she was, the other woman, the one who'd been stealing my husband, my money, my life. "I'm sorry, who are you?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. She rolled her eyes. "I'm Vanessa, Richard's girlfriend. Well, more than that, actually. We've been together for 2 years now, and he's finally ready to leave you. So I'm here to discuss the financial arrangements." 2 years. 2 years while I'd been making his dinners and doing his laundry and believing his lies. 2 years while I'd been sleeping alone, wondering what was wrong with me.
But I didn't let her see how much it hurt. Instead, I did something that surprised both of us. I smiled. "Why don't you come in?" I said. "We should talk." She seemed taken aback by my calmness, but she stepped inside, her heels clicking on our hardwood floors I'd refinished myself 5 years ago. She walked into my living room like she owned it, looking around with a critical eye. "This place is pretty dated," she said. "Don't worry, we're planning to renovate once Richard and I move in here." Move in here? Into my house. The house I'd lived in for 30 years, where I'd raised my children, where I'd built a life. Something cold settled in my chest, but I kept my voice pleasant. "Can I get you some coffee?" I asked. "Sure," she said, sitting on my couch, crossing her legs. "Just black, no sugar. I'm watching my figure, unlike some people." I went to the kitchen, and that's when I grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking, but I managed to open the voice recording app. I pressed record, slipped the phone into the pocket of my bathrobe, and walked back into the living room with her coffee. She took the cup without thanking me. "So," she said, "let's talk about money. Richard says you have about $200,000 in various accounts, plus the house is worth at least $500,000, probably more. In the divorce, you'll get half, which is fine. That gives us enough to start fresh." I sat down across from her, my hands folded in my lap. "Does Richard know you're here?" I asked. She waved her hand dismissively. "He knows I was planning to talk to you. He's just too much of a coward to do it himself." Men, they hate confrontation. That's why they need women like me to handle the difficult stuff. "Women like you," I repeated slowly. "Yeah," she said, sipping her coffee. "Strong women, confident women, not doormats who let their husbands walk all over them for 40 years. No offense." "None taken," I said, my voice steady even though I wanted to throw my own coffee in her face. She leaned forward. "Here's the thing, Margaret. Richard and I are in love, real love, not that boring, settled companionship thing you two have. We have chemistry, passion. I make him feel young again. And honestly, after seeing you, I understand why he needed to find someone else. Every word was designed to wound me, and they did, but I kept recording, kept my expression neutral. Richard's already moved most of his important documents to my apartment. He's just waiting for the right time to tell you. But I got tired of waiting, so here I am. We want to make this as clean as possible. You move out, we'll buy out your half of the house over time, and everyone can move on with their lives. Move out? I said. Of my own house? Well, technically, it's Richard's house too, and since you haven't worked in, decades? You haven't contributed financially in years, so really he's being generous offering you anything at all. I thought about all the years I'd spent supporting Richard's career, the dinners I'd hosted that led to his biggest clients, the household I'd managed so he could focus on work, the sacrifices I'd made, the dreams I'd deferred. And this woman, this stranger who'd been sleeping with my husband for 2 years, had the audacity to tell me I hadn't contributed? There's also the matter of the money Richard borrowed from me, she said casually. About $30,000 over the last year, for various business expenses, he said, so that will need to be repaid out of your settlement. $30,000, on top of the $50,000 from our retirement account. $80,000 of our money, gone, spent on her, on their affair, on hotel rooms and jewelry and designer clothes. So, to summarize, she said, standing up, we need you to move out within the next 60 days. Richard will file for divorce. You'll split assets 50-50, minus the $30,000 he owes me. Oh, and one more thing. Don't try to make this difficult or drag it out. Richard has a very good lawyer, and trust me, you don't want to fight this. Just take your share and go quietly. She walked toward the door, then turned back. You know, Margaret, you should really thank me. I'm doing you a favor. Richard hasn't been happy in years. Now you can both move on and find someone more suitable. Though at your age, well, good luck with that. She left, closing the door behind her with a sharp click. I sat there, in my bathrobe, in my house, shaking. But this time, I wasn't crying from sadness or shock. I was crying from rage, pure, white-hot rage. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording. 17 minutes. I had 17 minutes of her admitting to the affair. His face went pale, absolutely pale. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Margaret, I can explain. Explain what? I asked, my voice steady. Explain that you've been having an affair for 2 years? Explain that you spent $50,000 of our retirement money on her? Explain that you took $30,000 more? Explain that you've been planning to kick me out of my own house? It's not what you think, he started, but I held up my hand. Don't, I said. Don't insult me by lying anymore. I know everything. Vanessa was very thorough in her explanation of your plans. He tried to approach me, to take my hand, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. I want you to pack a bag and leave. Tonight. Go stay with your girlfriend, since that's obviously where you'd rather be. Margaret, please, we need to talk about this rationally. Rationally? My voice rose for the first time. You want to talk rationally? After 2 years of lying? After stealing our retirement money? After sending your mistress to my door to threaten me? I didn't send her, he said quickly. She came on her own. I didn't know she was going to do that. But you were planning to divorce me, I said. You were planning to take everything we'd built and give it to her. He couldn't meet my eyes. That was all the confirmation I needed. Get out, I said quietly. Get out of my house. We'll deal with the legal stuff later, but right now, I want you gone. This is my house too, he said, and for the first time, I heard anger in his voice. You can't just kick me out. Watch me, I said. You have 30 minutes to pack what you need.
If you're not gone by then, I'm calling the police and playing them the recording I have of your girlfriend making threats and admitting to financial fraud." "What recording?" I pulled out my phone and played a snippet. Vanessa's voice filled the room. "Richard's already moved most of his important documents to my apartment. He's just waiting for the right time to tell you." Parentheses. Richard's face went from pale to red. "You recorded her? Without her knowledge? That's not legal." "Actually," I said calmly, "in this state, only one party needs to consent to recording a conversation. That party was me. Every word she said is admissible in court. Every admission of the affair, every detail about the money, every demand and threat. All recorded." I'd done my research the moment Vanessa left. I'd spent the afternoon calling lawyers, learning about my rights, understanding what evidence I'd need. Deep breath. For the first time in 2 years, I'd taken action instead of just accepting my fate. Richard stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Maybe he was. Maybe he'd forgotten that I wasn't always the quiet, compliant wife who accepted everything he said without question. Maybe he'd forgotten that I'd been a paralegal before we got married, that I knew how to research, how to build a case. "You'll fight me on this," he said. "I'll get my lawyer." "Your lawyer," I interrupted, "is going to advise you to settle quickly and quietly. Because if this goes to court, everyone will know. Your clients will know that you stole retirement funds to spend on your mistress. Your colleagues will know. Our children will know every sordid detail. Is that really what you want?" His jaw clenched. "You're not the woman I married." "No," I agreed. "The woman you married trusted you. The woman you married believed your lies. The woman you married would have let you walk all over her. But she's gone, Richard. You killed her when you betrayed everything we had." He packed his bags in silence. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom watching him grab clothes, toiletries, his laptop. I thought I'd feel sad, watching my marriage end. But all I felt was relief and determination. As he walked past me with his suitcase, he stopped. "I did love you, Margaret. Once. Once wasn't enough," I said, and I closed the door behind him. The next morning, I called Jessica, Michael, and David. I told them everything. It was the hardest phone call I ever made. Jessica cried. Michael was furious. David asked me why I'd waited so long to tell them. I didn't have a good answer, except that I'd been ashamed, embarrassed, scared. But they rallied around me immediately. Jessica said she'd fly home that weekend. Michael started researching divorce lawyers in my area. David called every day to check on me. Softly, my children, who I'd always tried to protect from hardship, were now protecting me. Linda came over with wine and tissues and righteous anger. "I knew it," she said. "I knew that man was cheating. I should have pushed harder. I should have made you hire that investigator." "It's not your fault," I told her. "I wasn't ready to see the truth. But I see it now." She hugged me tight. "What are you going to do?" I took a sip of wine and smiled. "I'm going to take him for everything he's got, and then I'm going to live my best life."
I hired a lawyer named Patricia Chen, a fierce woman in her 50s who specialized in high-asset divorces. When I played her the recording of Vanessa, her eyes lit up. "Oh, this is good," she said. "This is very, very good. With this evidence, we can prove fault, dissipation of marital assets, and we can probably get a restraining order against the girlfriend." "Can we get the money back?" I asked. "The $80,000? "We'll certainly try," she said. "At minimum, we can ensure that money is counted as your portion in the asset division. He'll have to make it up from his share." Over the next week, I gathered evidence. I found more receipts, more credit card statements, more proof of Richard's spending on Vanessa. I documented every gift, every hotel stay, every expensive dinner. Patricia was thorough, and I learned to be thorough too. Then Richard's lawyer called. He wanted to negotiate a settlement. Patricia and I went to meet them at a downtown law office.
Walking into that conference room and seeing Richard sitting there with his expensive lawyer, I felt my heart pound, but I kept my spine straight and my head high. Richard's lawyer, a man named Stephen Brookfield, started with a reasonable tone. "We'd like to settle this amicably. Mr. Henderson is willing to offer Mrs. Henderson 50% of liquid assets and the house, assuming she buys out his half over 10 years. Patricia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. 50% of what assets, exactly? Before or after we account for the $80,000 Mr. Henderson stole from their joint accounts to spend on his mistress? Richard shifted uncomfortably. Stephen's expression hardened. That's a serious accusation. Patricia slid a folder across the table. It's not an accusation. It's a fact, backed by documentation, credit card statements, bank records, and a recorded confession from the mistress herself. She pulled out her phone and played part of my recording. Vanessa's voice filled the room. There's also the matter of the money Richard borrowed from me, about $30,000 over the past year. Stephen's face went stony. He leaned over to whisper to Richard, whose face was bright red. The silence stretched on. I could hear my own heartbeat. Finally, Stephen cleared his throat. "We'll need time to review this evidence." "Take all the time you need," Patricia said. "But be aware that if we don't reach a settlement soon, we'll be filing for divorce on grounds of adultery with a claim for dissipation of marital assets. That's a matter of public record. All of Mr. Henderson's clients will be able to read about how he spent retirement funds on his affair." Richard finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Margaret, please, don't do this. Think about what this will do to our family." I looked at him directly for the first time since entering the room. "I'm thinking about what you did to our family. For 2 years, every day, every lie, every dollar you stole, every moment you made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting the truth. I made a mistake. I was confused, going through something. A midlife crisis? Is that what we're calling it? 2 years of systematically destroying our marriage and stealing our money is a midlife crisis? I want to make this right," he said. "Then give me what I'm owed," I said simply. "Give me the house, free and clear. Give me back the $80,000. Give me 60% of all other assets. And stay away from me." "That's not fair," he protested. "That's more than half. Fair?" My voice rose again, and I didn't try to stop it. Was it fair to lie to me for 2 years? Was it fair to steal our retirement money? Was it fair to send your mistress to my door to threaten me? Was any of that fair, Richard? Stephen put a hand on Richard's arm to quiet him. "We'll need to discuss this with our client." "You do that," Patricia said, standing. "And while you're discussing, remember that we have more than enough evidence to destroy Mr. Henderson's reputation and career. He can settle generously now, or he can fight and lose everything publicly. His choice." As we left, I felt powerful for the first time in years. I'd stood up to Richard. I demanded what I deserved, and I hadn't backed down. But the fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 2 days later, Vanessa showed up again. This time I was ready. I opened the door with my phone already recording in my pocket. She looked less confident this time, almost nervous. She wanted to. "We need to talk," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I don't think we have anything to say to each other," I replied. "Please, just let me explain. Richard told me you were separated. He said you'd been living separate lives for years. I didn't know." I said flatly. "You knew. You called yourself his girlfriend. You demanded money from me.
She flinched. "That money was a loan. He was going to pay me back." "With what money?" I asked. "My retirement fund? The equity in my house? Let me guess, you were hoping to get your hands on the divorce settlement? I love him, she said, and she actually sounded sincere. We love each other. Why can't you just let him go and stop being vindictive? Vindictive, I repeated slowly. I'm being vindictive by not letting you steal everything I've worked for. I'm being vindictive by expecting consequences for fraud and theft. It wasn't fraud, she said quickly. Richard gave me that money willingly. Richard gave you money that belonged to both of us, I corrected. Money from our joint accounts, our retirement fund. That's called dissipation of marital assets, and it's illegal. And you admitted to it on recording, Vanessa. Remember that little chat we had? I recorded every word. Her eyes widened with panic. You can't use that. That's entrapment or something. It's not entrapment, I said. It's evidence. Evidence that you and Richard conspired to defraud me of my share of marital assets. Evidence that I've given to my lawyer, who's given it to his lawyer. Evidence that could land you both in serious legal trouble if you don't back off. Richard said you wouldn't fight. He said you were too passive, too scared. Richard was wrong, I said coldly. Now get off my property before I call the police and file a restraining order. She left, almost running to her expensive car. I watched her drive away, and I felt strong. Stronger than I'd felt in years. That night Richard called. I almost didn't answer, but Patricia had told me to document every contact. So I put him on speaker and started recording. Margaret, he said, sounding tired. This has gone too far. Can't we just talk, the two of us, without the lawyers? No, I said simply. I'm trying to be fair here, he said. But you're asking for too much. That's not half, that's more than half. I'm asking for what you stole, plus compensation for 2 years of lies, betrayal, and emotional abuse. If you think that's too much, we can go to court and let a judge decide. The kids are upset, he said, changing tactics. Jessica won't talk to me. Michael sent me an email telling me I'm dead to him. David said I destroyed our family. Is that what you wanted? I didn't tell them to feel that way. I told them the truth, and they made their own decisions. Maybe you should think about why your own children are ashamed of you. I made a mistake, he said again, desperately. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry about the affair. I'm sorry about the money. Can't we just move past this? Move past this? I actually laughed. Richard, you destroyed our marriage. You stole from us. You humiliated me. And now you want me to just move past it like it was nothing? I want us to end this with dignity, he said. Then accept my terms, I said, firmly. Give me the house, repay the stolen money, give me 60% of the remaining assets, and we can end this cleanly. Otherwise, I'll see you in court, and everyone will know exactly what kind of man you are. He hung up without saying goodbye. The next week, Stephen called Patricia with a counteroffer. 55% of assets, the house with Richard's equity bought out over 5 years, and repayment of $40,000 of the $80,000 he'd stolen. Not good enough, I told Patricia. I want it all back, and I want the house free and clear. This could go to trial, she warned. Trials are expensive, stressful, and unpredictable. I don't care, I said. I'm not backing down. Not anymore. I've backed down my whole marriage, and look where it got me. Richard needs to understand that there are consequences for what he did. Patricia smiled. Good for you, Margaret. I'll tell them we're rejecting their offer. The pressure built. Richard started calling more frequently, leaving voicemails that alternated between apologetic and angry. His family reached out. His sister called to tell me I was being unreasonable, that men make mistakes, that I should be more forgiving. I hung up on her. Then my sister-in-law, Richard's brother's wife, whom I'd always liked, called. Margaret, she said carefully, I need to tell you something. Richard's been calling family members, trying to get them to pressure you. He's telling people you're being greedy and vindictive. But I want you to know I don't believe him. And I know about the affair. Actually, I've known for a while. I saw them together at a restaurant about a year ago. My blood went cold. You knew and you didn't tell me? I'm sorry, she said. I thought about it. I really did.
Her support meant more than she knew. It reminded me that I wasn't alone, that people were on my side. Jessica flew home that weekend. She stayed with me, sleeping in her old bedroom that I'd kept exactly as she left it. We sat up late at night, drinking tea, talking about everything. She told me she'd always thought Dad was perfect, and learning about the affair had shattered her image of him. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, I said. I'm not, she said firmly. I'm glad I know the truth, and I'm proud of you, Mom, for fighting back, for not just accepting it. Her words gave me strength. The next day, we went through the house together, and she helped me box up Richard's remaining belongings. Everything he hadn't taken that first night, we packed up and put in the garage. His golf clubs, his books, his collection of vintage watches, all boxed up and ready for him to collect. When Richard came to get his things, he tried to talk to me. I stayed inside while Jessica dealt with him. Through the window, I could see them arguing. She was pointing at him, her face red, clearly yelling. He looked small and defeated. Good. After he left, Jessica came back inside. He tried to give me some bullshit about how this was all a misunderstanding, she said. I told him he was pathetic and that he destroyed the best thing he ever had. I don't think I'm going to talk to him for a long time, Mom. You don't have to choose sides, I said. I'm not choosing sides, she said. I'm choosing right from wrong, and he's wrong. The settlement negotiations dragged on for another month. Richard kept trying to wear me down, kept making offers that were just slightly better but still not enough. He was banking on me getting tired, getting frustrated, giving up. But he didn't know who he was dealing with anymore. During this time, I started rebuilding my life. I joined a gym and started working out with a trainer. I got my hair cut and colored, covering the gray I'd stopped caring about. I bought new clothes, ones that made me feel confident and strong. I started remembering who I used to be before I became just Richard's wife. Linda introduced me to her book club, and I made new friends. Women my age who were divorced, widowed, or happily single. Women who had their own stories of heartbreak and survival. We'd meet every Tuesday evening, drink wine, barely discuss the book, and instead share our lives. It was therapy disguised as literature. I also started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other women who were escaping abusive relationships. Hearing their stories put mine in perspective. I'd been betrayed and stolen from, but I was safe. I had resources. I had family support. Not everyone was so lucky. Helping them helped me heal. One evening, about 6 weeks after Richard left, I was at home making dinner when someone knocked on my door. I was immediately wary. If it was Vanessa again, I was calling the police immediately. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. She was maybe 40, blonde, nervous looking. I opened the door cautiously. "Can I help you?" "Are you Margaret Henderson?" she asked. "Yes." She took a deep breath. "My name is Lauren Mitchell. Lauren Mitchell, I think we need to talk about Richard Henderson and Vanessa Keene." I invited her in, my mind racing.
Who was this woman? How did she know about Richard and Vanessa? We sat in my living room, and she twisted her hands nervously before finally speaking. Vanessa Keene was engaged to my husband, or I thought he was going to be my ex-husband. We separated 8 months ago. He met Vanessa at a business conference, and she pursued him aggressively. Within 2 months, she'd moved into his apartment. Within 4 months, she'd convinced him to give her access to his bank accounts. My blood ran cold. What happened? She drained them, Lauren said. Almost $60,000. By the time he realized what was happening, she was gone. He tried to press charges, but she claimed it was gifts, that they had a relationship and he gave her the money willingly. The police said it was a civil matter. Oh my God, I whispered. That's not all, Lauren continued. I started digging after that. I hired a private investigator. Vanessa Keene isn't even her real name. It's Vanessa Klein. She's done this before. At least 3 other men that we could find. She targets successful married men. She seduces them, debts them to give her money, and when she's gotten what she can, she moves on to the next one. I felt sick. So, Richard isn't special. He's just her latest mark. I'm sorry, Lauren said. I know that probably doesn't make it easier, but I thought you should know what kind of person she is. When I saw her name in my ex-husband's social media post with a different man, I knew she was doing it again. It took me a while to find you, to find out who he was married to. Why are you telling me this? I asked.
Because I didn't have enough evidence to stop her, Lauren said. The police wouldn't help. My lawyer said there wasn't enough proof of fraud. She got away with it. But if you're going through a divorce, if you have documentation of what she did, maybe you can stop her. Maybe you can make sure she doesn't do this to someone else. I told Lauren about my recording, about the evidence I'd gathered. Her eyes widened. That's more than I ever had, she said. That's actual proof of conspiracy. You could probably press criminal charges. After Lauren left, I called Patricia immediately and told her everything. She was silent for a moment, then said, "This changes things. If Vanessa has a history of this, if there's a pattern, we might be able to get law enforcement involved. This isn't just an affair anymore. This is fraud." The next day, Patricia and I went to the police station. We filed a report about the stolen money, providing my recording of Vanessa admitting to receiving $30,000, plus all the financial records showing Richard's withdrawals and expenditures. The detective we spoke to, a woman named Detective Sarah Morrison, listened carefully. "This is tricky," she said. "Your husband could claim he gave her gifts willingly. She could claim it was a relationship and the money was freely given." "But he took it from joint accounts," Patricia said, "without Mrs. Henderson's knowledge or consent. And there's a pattern of behavior with this woman. She's done it before." Detective Morrison's eyebrows rose. "A pattern?" I told her about Lauren, about Vanessa's history. Patricia handed over the file we'd put together. Detective Morrison flipped through it, her expression growing more serious. "Let me look into this," she said finally. "I can't promise anything, but if there's enough evidence of a pattern, we might be able to build a case. At minimum, we can bring them both in for questioning." Leaving the police station, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Hope. Not just hope that I'd get justice in the divorce, but hope that Vanessa would actually face consequences for what she'd done to multiple people. That night, Richard called again. "I heard you went to the police," he said. His voice was tight with fury. "Are you insane? You're going to destroy my career, my reputation, everything." "You destroyed it yourself," I said calmly. "When you decided to steal from our marriage to fund your affair with a con artist." "She's not a con artist," he said desperately. "Vanessa loves me. What we have is real."
Richard. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He'd destroyed our marriage, stolen our money, humiliated me, all for a woman who was just using him. But that was his burden to bear now. What happens next? I asked. We're building a case, Detective Morrison said. With the testimony from Lauren Mitchell's ex-husband, your recording, Richard's statement, and the financial records, we might have enough to charge her with fraud and theft by deception. It'll take time, but I'm hopeful. The pressure on Richard intensified after that. Stephen called Patricia with a new settlement offer. The house, free and clear. Full repayment of the $80,000, 65% of all remaining assets, and a public apology. He's scared, Patricia said when she called to tell me. He knows that if this goes to trial now, the criminal investigation will come up. Everyone will know he was scammed by a con artist. His clients will lose faith in him. His reputation will be destroyed. He wants this over quickly and quietly. What do you think I should do? I asked. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Honestly, she said, I think this is as good as it gets. You're getting the house, you're getting your money back, and you're getting most of the assets. If we go to trial, we might get 70% instead of 65%, but it'll cost you thousands in legal fees and months of stress. And there's always a chance the judge could rule differently. I thought about it. I thought about what I really wanted. Did I want to punish Richard as much as possible, or did I want to move on with my life, to be free of him, to start rebuilding? Tell them I accept, I said. On one condition. The public apology has to be specific. He has to admit to the affair, to the financial deception, and to betraying our marriage. And he has to post it on his social media, where his clients and colleagues will see it. Patricia laughed. You're tougher than you look, Margaret. I'll tell them. Richard fought the public apology requirement. Stephen said it was humiliating, unnecessary, vindictive, but Patricia held firm. It's non-negotiable, she said. Either he admits what he did publicly, or we go to trial and it becomes public record anyway. His choice. In the end, Richard agreed. I think he realized he didn't have any good options left. The day we signed the settlement papers was surreal. We met at Stephen's office, me on one side of the table with Patricia, Richard on the other side with Stephen. We didn't look at each other as we signed page after page. Transfer of house deed, division of bank accounts, retirement fund distributions. The end of 38 years of marriage, reduced to legal documents and signatures. When it was done, Richard finally looked at me. I am sorry, Margaret, he said, for whatever that's worth now. I really am sorry. I looked at him, this man I'd loved for almost 4 decades, and felt nothing but emptiness. I'm sorry, too, I said. I'm sorry I wasted so much of my life on someone who didn't value me. I walked out of that office a free woman. Jessica was waiting for me. She hugged me tight, and I let myself cry. Not from sadness, but from relief. It was finally over. That evening, Richard posted his apology on Facebook and LinkedIn. It was brief but clear. I want to publicly apologize to my ex-wife, Margaret Henderson, for my infidelity, for my betrayal of her trust, and for my poor choices that led to the end of our marriage. She deserved better than what I gave her, and I will regret my actions for the rest of my life. The comments section exploded. Some people were supportive of his honesty. Many more were shocked and disappointed.
Several of his clients commented, asking for calls to discuss their accounts. His professional reputation took a significant hit just as he'd feared. Vanessa's reaction came 2 days later. She showed up at my door one final time. I opened it with my phone already recording, but this time she looked different. Desperate, angry, scared. "This is all your fault," she hissed. "Richard was going to leave you. We were going to be together. But you couldn't just accept it. You had to destroy everything." "I destroyed everything?" I said, incredulous. "You scammed him. You scammed multiple men. You're facing criminal charges. None of that is my fault." "Those charges won't stick," she said, desperately. "I didn't do anything illegal. Those men gave me that money willingly." "Keep telling yourself that. But I'd get a good lawyer if I were you, because Detective Morrison seems pretty confident about her case." "Richard won't testify against me," she said, trembling voice. "He loves me." "Richard will do whatever his lawyer tells him to do. And right now, his lawyer is probably telling him to cooperate fully with the police if he doesn't want to face charges himself as an accessory." Her face crumpled. "I really did love him," she said. And for a moment, she almost sounded sincere. "It wasn't all fake." "Maybe not. But it doesn't matter now. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. Just like Richard does. Just like I did for 2 years while you were destroying my marriage." "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said weakly. "Yes, you did. You came to my door and told me to get out of my own house. You insulted me, belittled me, threatened me. You knew exactly what you were doing. Now get off my property and don't come back." She left, and I never saw her again. A few weeks later, Detective Morrison called to tell me that Vanessa had been formally charged with fraud and theft by deception. With multiple victims willing to testify, including Richard, the district attorney felt confident about the case. She was looking at potential jail time. The house felt different after that. Lighter, somehow. I walked through rooms that had felt oppressive and suffocating, and now they felt like mine again. I redecorated Richard's home office, turning it into an art studio. I'd always wanted to paint, but I never had time or space. Now, I had both. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. I took a watercolor class at the community center. I started traveling, taking weekend trips to places I'd always wanted to see. Jessica, Michael, and David took turns visiting, and we grew closer than we'd been in years.
Linda and I took a trip to Italy, something we talked about for a decade, but never done. We ate pasta and drank wine and toured museums and laughed until we cried. I felt young again, or at least younger than I had in years. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in decades. Tom Bradley had been a friend from my paralegal days before I'd married Richard. We'd lost touch when I stopped working to focus on family. We bumped into each other at a coffee shop, and he didn't recognize me at first. "Margaret?" he said, squinting. "Margaret Wilson? Or, wait, Henderson?" "Just Margaret now," I said, smiling. "It's good to see you, Tom." We sat and talked for 2 hours. He was divorced too, had been for 5 years. His wife had left him for someone else, and he'd spent time rebuilding his life, much like I was doing. We exchanged numbers, and he called me a few days later to ask if I'd like to have dinner. I said yes. Not because I was ready for a new relationship, but because I was ready to say yes to life again, to possibilities, to being someone other than Richard's portrayed wife. Tom and I have been seeing each other for a few months now. It's casual, comfortable, no pressure. He makes me laugh. He listens when I talk. He treats me with respect and kindness. He reminds me what it feels like to be valued.
I still see Patricia sometimes. We become friends, meeting for lunch every few weeks. She tells me I inspired her, that watching me find my strength and fight back reminded her why she does what she does. I tell her she saved my life, which is true in a way. As for Richard, I heard through mutual acquaintances that he lost several major clients after his public apology. His firm asked him to take early retirement. He's living in a small apartment across town, his savings depleted from the settlement and legal fees. I don't feel happy about his downfall, but I don't feel sorry for him either. He made his choices. Vanessa went to trial 6 months ago. I testified, as did Lauren Mitchell's ex-husband and 2 other men who came forward after reading about the case. The jury found her guilty on multiple counts of fraud. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to her victims. Justice, finally. My children are doing well. Jessica is engaged to a wonderful woman she met at the hospital. Michael just got a promotion. David is thinking about going back to school to get his master's degree. They're proud of me, they tell me often. They say I showed them what strength looks like, what it means to stand up for yourself, even when it's hard. I'm 63 now, and my life looks nothing like I thought it would at this age. I'm not spending my golden years with the husband I thought I'd grow old with, but I'm also not spending them being disrespected, betrayed, and taken for granted. I'm free. I'm happy. I'm myself again. The house is truly mine now. I've made it into exactly what I want. My art studio is full of paintings, some good, some terrible, all mine. My garden is flourishing. My guest room is always ready for when the kids visit. This is my space, my sanctuary, and no one can take it from me. I think about that day Vanessa showed up at my door sometimes. If I hadn't recorded that conversation, if I hadn't had that evidence, things might have turned out very differently. I might have been the one leaving my house, accepting less than I deserved, disappearing quietly while they moved on with their lives. But I didn't. I fought back. I stood up for myself. I demanded justice and didn't back down until I got it. The women at the shelter where I volunteer sometimes ask me for advice. They're in situations so much harder than mine was. They seem dangers I never faced. But when they ask how I found the courage to leave, to fight, to start over, I tell them the truth. You find it when you realize that staying is worse than leaving. You find it when you understand that you deserve better. You find it when you get angry enough at the injustice to stop accepting it. And once you find it, you hold on to it with everything you have. I tell them about recording Vanessa, about gathering evidence, about standing in that lawyer's office and refusing to back down. I tell them that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. Being patient doesn't mean accepting abuse. Being loving doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. Last week, I got a letter from a woman I don't know. She'd heard about my case somehow, about how I'd fought back against my husband's affair and won. She wrote that my story gave her the courage to leave her own abusive marriage. She thanked me for showing her that it was possible to start over, to reclaim your life, to be happy again. I cried when I read that letter. Not from sadness, but from the realization that my pain, my struggle, my fight had meant something beyond just my own life. It had helped someone else find their own strength.
I keep that letter on my refrigerator next to pictures of my kids and grandkids. Yes, grandkids. Jessica and her fiance are adopting, and I'm going to be a grandmother. Me, the woman who thought her life was over at 62, is getting ready to start a whole new chapter. Tom asked me recently if I'd ever consider getting married again. I told him honestly that I don't know. Maybe someday, if I met the right person, if the situation was right. But I'm in no hurry. I'm enjoying my independence too much. I'm enjoying being just Margaret, not someone's wife, not defined by someone else. I have my art, my friends, my family, my volunteer work, my travels. I have my house and my garden and my freedom. I have myself back, the person I was before I lost her in 38 years of marriage, to a man who didn't appreciate what he had. Would I change what happened if I could? That's a complicated question. I wish I hadn't wasted 2 years trusting a liar. I wish I hadn't felt the pain of that betrayal. I wish I'd stood up for myself sooner. But I also wouldn't be who I am now without going through all of that. I wouldn't be as strong. I wouldn't value myself as much. I wouldn't know that I'm capable of fighting for what's right, even when it's hard, even when everyone expects me to just accept my fate quietly. So no, I wouldn't change it. Because the woman I am now, the one who stood up to Vanessa and Richard, the one who gathered evidence and hired a lawyer and demanded justice, the one who rebuilt her life from scratch at 62, she's someone I'm proud to be. My advice to anyone going through something similar? Document everything. Trust your instincts. Don't let anyone convince you that you're being paranoid or unreasonable when you know something is wrong. Gather your evidence before you confront anyone. Find a good lawyer. Build your support system. And most importantly, remember that you deserve better than betrayal, lies, and disrespect. You deserve a life where you're valued, where you're respected, where you're loved genuinely and faithfully. And if you're not getting that, you have the power to change it. It won't be easy. It might be the hardest thing you ever do, but you're stronger than you think you are. I certainly was. My name is Margaret Henderson. I'm 63 years old, and I'm finally living the life I deserve. If you liked my story and it resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in a difficult situation? Have you ever discovered a betrayal and had to find the courage to fight back? I'd love to hear your stories. And if you're going through something similar right now, know that you're not alone. You're stronger than you know you are. And you deserve better. Don't ever forget that.